Good evening, everyone. My name's Tyler Richard. I'm Director of Nationwide Strategic Communications at the ACLU's National Office, so I get to spend my days working with Sam and Daff and other amazing communications teams in our affiliates. But a decade ago, I was Communications Director for the ACLU office in Nebraska and got to work with these amazing individuals on our marriage case. As has been said a couple of times, the work of the ACLU is generational. One of the first projects that I got to work on when I joined the staff of the ACLU was helping to prepare for the 45th anniversary of the affiliate, and being here to celebrate the 60th, being invited back. My mom thanks you for bringing me back, but I am also so thankful to have spent much of the day with wonderful friends who I don't get to see often enough. So thank you for letting me spend the day with all of you. We'll now talk a little bit about the Waters v. Ricketts case. And I'll go ahead and start over here with Tom. And why don't we pass the mic and you introduce yourself as you go around. But tell me a bit about how you learned about the case and how you got connected with the case to start with.
Hi, I'm Tom Maddox. I'm originally from Lincoln. My husband and I, Randy, and I live in San Diego now. But back in 2014, we were filing, Randy's a CPA, and we were filing our tax returns. Nebraska wouldn't let us file a joint return. I had some land here in Nebraska, and so we had to file in Nebraska. Randy, being a CPA, said, well, that's not right, and filed jointly anyway. Got a letter saying, slapping our hands. And so Randy called the ACLU and said, this is going on, can you help us?
So to add to that, I guess over time you learn that you have to fight. You don't get anywhere if you don't speak up. So I called Nebraska before we filed, and I explained that we could file jointly everywhere, but in Nebraska. And they said, well, you can't do that. So we did file jointly, and that felt good. And they quickly, I've never seen government move so quickly. They sent us a letter, said you can't do that, and so the ACLU came to mind right away. And so here we are. So.
Two mics. Hi, I'm Kathleen Kallstrom-Schreckengast, and my wife is here. She'll introduce herself in a minute, I guess. So in 2014, yes, we were living in New Jersey. We met in New York, and we had just had our first baby. And we decided to move back to Nebraska because we were basically never going to be able to buy anywhere to live on the East Coast. And we wanted to be near family to raise our kids. And so we moved back, and one of the first appointments we had when we moved here was at Koenig to figure out what we were going to need to do to protect ourselves here, because we knew that moving back was going to bring up some issues with all sorts of things, but definitely like parental rights. We had a kiddo in New York where we were both on the birth certificate, and that wasn't going to be possible in Nebraska, and we were planning to have more kids, so I think Susan mentioned it to us originally, right, the case? Yeah, and we were like, sweet, let's go. And epilogue, we had triplets a few years later. They're almost 8 now, which is crazy, so it worked out.
It did. We question it sometimes, especially that first year when we added up the hours of sleep that we got. But no, I think Susan's law firm was instrumental in bringing us into this case. I remember I actually reached out to you guys, I think originally via email about, hey, what paperwork do we need? We're bringing our 6 months old to this state, and I'm not really sure about that. And I think you guys were like, hey, by the way, we've got this thing going on, and I'm a lawyer, actually. I'm a civil rights lawyer in the employment space. And so for me, it was kind of like combining work and personal all together. And I think at the time, I don't know if it was Danielle Conrad or it was somebody, somebody said to me at the time, I think I was going to be like the first one deposed or something, I think, in the case, because they're like, you depose other people, so you're going to be fine. We'll start with you. So So I think I was going to be like the sacrificial, lamb on that. And I was happy to go have that fight. I was like, let's do it. You ask your questions. But that's how we got involved with it.
So I'm Susan Koenig with the Koenig Law Firm. We just moved into offices on Dodge Street right by the new Central Library, so stop in, say hello. I remember the summer of 2014. I'd been, our firm had been supporting the queer community for many years in legal services, and I'd been a supporter of the ACLU and following the work that was being done across the country. And I picked up the phone and called the ACLU in Lincoln to the main office and just said, it's time for us to bring this litigation here, and we're the law firm who will do it with you. And my law partner, Angela Dunn, was 100% on board with me, and so that was the beginning.
Fantastic, thank you. So I know that some of us, we've been talking at different points in the day and trying to go through timelines of events, and there were a lot of them in 2015 and 2016 that many of us did together. Whether it was a media interview, a panel like this, or something more quiet and intimate at home, like what were some of your treasured memories from that time?
So because we had been litigants in a marriage case, the Obama administration invited all ACLU litigants, or maybe all litigants, to the reception that Valerie Jarrett hosted the night before Oberfeld was argued. So we got to meet all of these couples from, I think, the 90s, as I recall, a lesbian couple. And then the next day we went to the court, and we didn't have tickets to get in, of course, but these Boston students that just took us under their wing, they said there's a 3-minute line. We got in, we got with these students. We were the last group to get into the court, and we were there when they argued the case. And I'll never forget what that was like. And so when we exited the courtroom, we were at the back of the court. So we were at the top of the stairs. The rallies are going down below. And it was just an amazing experience that will live with me forever. So,
Yeah, that vision of the rally, the both demonstrators for pro and against marriage. When we walked out at the top of the stairs, the crowd just roared, and we were out with everybody as they walked down the steps, and it just felt like the biggest thing of my life. It was unbelievable.
so we happened to be once we got down to the bottom of the stairs, we had these ACLU heart rainbow-colored T-shirts matching, and a woman was holding a sign behind us that said, "Every child needs a mother and a father." Well, that picture got picked up by media and was all over the place, and ended up in the Wall Street Journal. And I'm really lucky to work for a Jewish family in Kansas City, and my boss at the time was 96, and became like my dad. Tom and I were married in 2008. After being together 25 years, neither of our families would come to our wedding. 3 generations of my work family were there. And so Harold, who's 96, is driving to the office, and he says, "I'll save the Wall Street Journal." And he chuckles because our picture's in the Wall Street Journal. And he said something we had never heard from our families. He said, "I'm so proud of you. You've been working at this a long time." And so that just so special to me. And so we're just fortunate to be in that family. So.
One of the many wonderful things about the marriage work. So often in the ACLU's work, when we have a victory, we have made someone's life moderately less crappy. And that is real and important, and it is wonderful that we get to do it. And the marriage work was just so happy. It was so uplifting and joyous. The only other moment in my 16 years of working for the ACLU that had that type of spark was winning the workplace protections for LGBTQ people at the Supreme Court. That was another moment that just felt so joyous and good that I'm very proud to be a part of. What are some of your important memories from this time?
So first of all, I would say, to that individual holding the sign back there, our kids are doing just fine with 2 moms. They are happy, they are healthy. They can be a little wild sometimes, but for me, honestly, we'd have to fast forward just a couple of years from that 14-15 timeframe into 2018 when we had our triplets. Because for me, the biggest kind of lived impact of what we did a few years prior was, we were at the hospital. We were at Nebraska Methodist Women's Hospital to have the triplets. And when they bring you the paperwork after the kiddos are there for the birth certificate and all of that, I'll tell y'all, I was like 24 hours postpartum. I was ready to fight. I will call the general counsel of this hospital. I will drag it down here. If this form is not correct, we will both be on that certificate. And they brought us the forms, and it was parent 1 and parent 2, just like exactly what we had in New York City with our first son. And for me, that really concretized the work that we did. It was like, oh, we made our kids and other people's kids safer in this state.
I am new to perimenopause, so I can't remember anything since I was a teenager. So I'm going to answer that question instead, which is just the first thing that comes to mind with all of this. When I was in high school, I went to protests for Prop 420. Remember that? And so that's really like, to me, it's the full timeline that I remember, that I remember like coming out in high school in Nebraska and doing, a GSA, and then I somehow got my wife to move back here with me many years later, and this felt really like we were going full circle, like a full realization of not only like fighting for my rights, but just like really consolidating my identity as a queer person and as a queer Nebraskan, like we were back and not leaving.
So the good news, as we all know, we won. We won the preliminary injunction from Judge Battalion at the district court level, and then a couple months later, there was the victory in Obergefell. I know when the preliminary injunction news came down, I was driving my best friend back from Phoenix to Nebraska, so that day's a little bit of a blur for me. But what was it like for the rest of you hearing that news when we won?
Go ahead, Susan.
The biggest emotion for me was pride. When you're a lawyer, you don't always pick your clients, right? When they come in the door and you've made a pledge to, when you're in private practice, you pledge to be an advocate for the position of whoever is your client. And if you're a good lawyer, you can make a case for anything. But when you have the privilege of representing people like you see here tonight and the others who are exposing their lives, their families, to the media, to the public, to judgment, to scrutiny, and you get to be their advocate, I was just overwhelmed with both relief and pride, along with the joy but really it was like, aren't I lucky to get to be a part of this? And to the point of being personal, I could just say, and yes, I have a gay brother and I have a trans child, and so it all matters, and we're all connected, and it's for everyone. But those were my feelings on that day.
So, I had experiences that make me realize if you don't tell your story, nothing can happen. Personal stories make a difference. Well, with media coverage that came from us being involved in marriage issues, we had lived in Kansas City, and they did a feature story about us. And I had lost touch with high school friends from Bible Belt of southern Missouri. And so a friend who was in my class wrote a note, and a really nice note saying how wonderful it was and supportive. Well, he brought me back into that circle of friends, and those are some of our best friends now from high school, a small high school in Bolivar, Missouri, of 100. But when they were visiting us not long ago, he and his wife, I brought the card and showed him, and his wife, who says she's very quiet, but she said it was their daughter who suggested he write the card, and of course her daughter was gay. And she was probably in junior high school or something at the time. She said, you need to write him a note. So the moral to me for the story, you need to tell your stories. And you need to fight for who you want to be, who you are. And that's how change will happen. You need places like the ACLU to help you do that. But if you don't speak up in the first place, it's not gonna happen.
And I admit what Susan was talking about earlier, exposing yourself. When they first asked us if we would want to join the case, my first reaction was, we just seen this, when they go through the hearings to choose Supreme Court justices and the grilling that they do, and the people that speak up against them, the poor woman that spoke against Kavanaugh and the like. I thought, I don't want my life dissected like that. But with the help of the ACLU and the encouragement that they provide, and the professionalism that made me feel a lot safer that way.
I just remember the picture of Marge and Tracy kissing that was on the front page of the New York Times, because I read that every morning, and it was, you open it or on my phone at the time, and it was like, wham, I was like, I know them.
Absolutely. The photos from those moments are amazing. Were you going to add something?
I can't remember because of perimenopause.
Great. So then the next question, and this will be our last one, what are the lessons from, you've already shared one, Randy, about telling your story, but what are the lessons from the marriage movement that you think can be applied to other civil rights and civil liberties battles that are happening today?
It's true, I've done this one's way easier. I was thinking about this coming into tonight, and I feel like I don't have a lot of practical ideas. It's just that, the wheels of time are going to grind forward no matter what, and we're on the right side of history, and I think, it's just wild the last few years, just random straight people are wearing, Love is Love shirts from Target. And it was not like that, it's just so different. And that's because it just keeps going. And so you do your part, whatever you can do, and it's headed that direction. I think all of this trans stuff is horrible and people are suffering, and then in 25 years, everybody's gonna be like, yay, gender is nothing, and it just keeps moving, so.
We're just in a bit of a U-turn right now, but we're gonna get reoriented. We're gonna get back on the path. I think it's really difficult right now, honestly, to distill lessons in particular that we can apply to protect the trans members of our community, because right now everything's turned on its head, right? Precedents that have existed for 80, 100 years, the concept of stare decisis, the court will follow its own precedents, has largely been thrown out the window by the current 9. And they're willing to go up to a congressional hearing, sit at that mic, and lie through their teeth about what they will or will not do. And so when you're dealing with a group of liars who are cloaked in the respectability of their black robes, and they know they can do things and make decisions and go the opposite direction from what they've promised, it seems like we're on a little bit of shifting sand all the time. And so I think right now the biggest lesson that I would take from this, in thinking about, you've only got 4 members of this case up here today. There's a lot of members who are missing, some who've passed away since then, right? But at the time, I think we all felt pretty united. And that, I think, is the kernel that you can take and apply to movement work for the trans community and others, immigrants, for example, is that we have to unify and we have to work together more than anything. And those of us with certain privilege have to step into that and use it. You have to use it, right? I'm a lawyer, she's a therapist. We are well-resourced. We had one kid at the time who was healthy. We didn't have, medical issues, etc. We were in a place where we could take those risks that Susan was talking about, right? We could be vulnerable with, minimal risk or cost to us. Maybe some discomfort here or there, although again, I was fully ready to be deposed, looking forward to it. But yeah, you have to use the privilege that you have and you have to work together with others because that's the only way that we're all not just gonna fall in the shifting sand.
I was just also going to say, if you have a bunch of kids, as we do, and you raise them all to respect everyone and recognize their privilege and use their privilege, then the U-turn that's happening now, those people are going to be dead soon. And, fingers crossed, my kids have a generation of a life to live, and I think they are going to take it in the right direction. And so I think we try to imbue our parenting with that kind of value.
Well, our efforts when you have law firms that won't defend their law firms and they back down, universities, hospitals that will not provide trans care. We can't be afraid. So these people, we have to double our efforts to make up for that, and maybe they'll come around, but whether they do or not, we have no choice.
And I'll say, when you feel your call that there's something to do, you pick up the phone, or you write the check, or you show up at the meeting or the rally and do what is yours to do. Don't overthink it. But pay attention to that call. And Tyler, what you taught us back then, I think applies along with taking the long view, is changing hearts and minds. And how do we do that? We do that by sharing these stories, telling our family stories, and helping people really see the humanity and the choices that they're making.
Thank you, Susan. So let's give a round of applause to our amazing client and co-counsel in this case.